I think we should start. Yoram, please.
Thank you, Alina. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our fourth lecture in a series of 12, all dealing with water management. Today's lecture is dealing with, or maybe I will start in a different way. I suppose that many of you remember the story of Cape Town in South Africa a few years ago, where they already had a day mentioned, the day when they knew that they're going to run out of water, the whole city. Apparently, the date was postponed again and again and again, and the reason for that was one and only because they didn't manage to do anything regarding infrastructure during the days that they had, but still they managed to avoid the disaster. And it was done only by talking to the people, sending messages, and educating people regarding the importance of smart use and efficient use of water, how not to spend water when it's not necessary. And in this case, at this time, it was enough. In Israel, the story of the idea of educating people ever since they're small kids that water is important, that saving water is crucial for our living, etc., is decades old. I think that even before the state of Israel was established, people were already aware of the fact that water is a very, very important and scarce a, element of our daily life. So today our lecturer, Mr. Uri Schor, was the spokesperson for the Israel Water Authority and the one that is responsible for the education and sending the information regarding saving water or using water in a smart way. Is our guest lecturer today. Thank you very much, Uri, for willing to share your knowledge with us. Before we start, a few technical issues that we should be aware of. We hope to finish everything in 1 hour so that we will not take too much time of your precious daily time. Questions will be answered towards the end of the lecture. What we suggest, what we ask you to do, is to write your questions on the chat. You can do it by sending the question to everybody, not in a private way, so other people will be able also to see your questions and maybe avoid asking the same question again and again. And Mr. Schor will refer to some of the questions at the end of his lecture. What else? Yes. Today's lecture, like some others before, is being recorded and will be uploaded to the YouTube channel of Mashav MATC. MATC is Mashav Agriculture Training Center. And you're more than welcome to go back afterwards and watch it again or share it with friends that you think might have interest in the lecture afterwards. Moreover, this time we are at least trying to share the lecture live also on YouTube, same channel of Mashav MATC, and their Facebook page. So you'll be able to see the lecture also over there. And at least from what I remember or from what I know, you will be also able to go back to Facebook, and the lecture should stay there at least for a while. What else? Let me just make sure that I didn't forget anything. Okay, I think that we are cool. So there's only one thing left before we'll give the floor to Mr. Schor, and this is a message from our sponsor. Alina, are you ready?
Yes, I am. And
Good, thank you.
just to explain, we are streaming live on Facebook only for now. And the address of our Facebook page, I have written you way up in chat. I think you can see it, okay? If you follow us there, you will be able later to see the recording of the stream as well as on our YouTube. And now a message from our sponsor.
Thank you.
Mashav, Israel's Agency for International Development Cooperation, was launched 60 years ago to share the know-how and technologies which provided the basis for Israel's own rapid development. Mashav aims to empower those living in poverty in a holistic and innovative way and support fellow nations and communities in their struggle to achieve sustainable development, placing people at the heart of its initiatives. Our agricultural programs use unique techniques and farming methods to increase sustainability, food security, and hunger eradication. We believe that investment in education is an investment in our future and an agent for change around the world. We coordinate Israel's official humanitarian assistance, building medical facilities and supplying medicine in the wake of earthquakes, floods, famine, and other disasters. Mashav promotes innovative entrepreneurship as a means of advancing growth and prosperity. We believe that gender equality and women's empowerment are central to reach sustainable development. Our philosophy is to leave no one behind. During 6 decades, Mashav has trained over 300,000 people from more than 140 countries and has established development projects worldwide. Mashav, Israel's Agency for International Development Cooperation, is celebrating 60 years of sharing its experience and partnering for a better world.
Thank you, Alina. I can see that quite a lot of people just joined us in the last 1 or 2 minutes. So hello again to everybody. We're here today in our 4th lecture out of 12. And Mr. Uri Schor, the spokesperson for the Israel Water Authority, is just ready to start his lecture. So enjoy, everybody. Thank you.
Well, hello to everybody. Thank you. I usually lecture to many people in all ages, from kindergarten till grown-ups, from professionals through academic people and others, in Israel, of course, but also abroad. Just 2 days ago, I lectured to a group of very young people from Israel in kindergarten. I opened the lecture by looking at their eyes. You know, everybody, they're all set, about 40 small brats sat in front of me. And I looked at their eyes and I said, who has water in his house? And all the kids rose their hands, raising their hands and said, yes, we have. I said, really? Do you want to tell me you open a tap and you get water? They said, yes. I said, well, also here in the kindergarten, you open a tap, you get water? They said, yes. I said, that's magic. And I started to explain how water really reaches from the sources of water till our homes. And I'm jumping now to our lecture for our age. If it's really not normal, when everybody opens here a tap in Israel, wherever you are located, you open a tap, you get water, and that's magic. It's pure magic. Because science and technology is a kind of magic. And I must say that in Israel, more than half of the water, more than 50% of the water is being used for all users in Israel is man-made water. Therefore, whenever we open a tap in Israel and we receive water, that's magic. And we mustn't take that for granted. I'll try to load up the presentation I have. Just 1 second. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll speaking now about closing the gap between the quantities of water that we have mainly relating to the education, information, and campaigns. But I'll start in a nutshell about the situation. Well, due to climate change, all the world is facing changes of global threat. The real problem is really that we have less water, drinking water, capita, due to leakage, due to lack of awareness, due to many reasons. But quantity of water, drinking water that we receive all over the world is getting decreased every year. The United Nations estimate that 5 years from now, more than about 2 billion people will face water scarcity. 2 billion people. And 30 years from now, almost half of the world population will be living in countries that are chronically really suffering from water shortage. Therefore, the problem of lack of water, of scarcity is increasing all over the world. And the solution really is in holistic, centralized water management. We have a lot of challenges, but if you can look at the global map, that's a map from the World Resource Institute, one can see that you haven't got, you know, all the almost everywhere you have scarcity of water. But if you look at Israel, we are smack over here in the middle. We are really with extreme lack of water. And if you can see the other chart here as well, just 1 second. That's a Middle East water stress index. Again, from the World Resource Institute, and one can see that for the countries that are extremely high based in water stress, Israel is number 2. Therefore, we haven't got really enough water. The quantity of natural water in the area is far from being enough or from coping with the demand of water that we have in the area. Now, the main problem really of drinking water, or the drinking water challenge, if you take the average in urban areas, one can see that about 1/4 of the quantity of water is being lost simply during leakages and neglection of the pipelines. You have places or countries that the percentage is much higher, but even 1/4, and that's the average all over, it's a lot. And this thing one must take care of. And as I said, 30 years from now, 2/3 of the world will suffer from lack of water. Therefore, if you lose 1/4 of the water that you already have, is something that is unbelievable. I'll speak a bit about the Israeli experience of coping with water shortage, because really in order to prevent the next crisis, one must manage the shortage in the best manner that you can. And a bit fast facts about Israel: about 60% of Israel's land is a desert. The rest is arid. 72 years ago till today, Israel population has grown about 15 times. Therefore, the demand for water is increasing tremendously in Israel, due to the rise of the population, of course, but also due to the upgrade of the standard of living. And if we look at the climate change, Israel is expected to become even drier. But even if we look at the last 30 years, one can see that in average, the quantity of rainfall that we receive in this area is decreasing all the time. The last 2 years, we had very good years that were above average, but the 5 years that came before that were very droughted, and we suffered from lack of water, much beneath the average. But if you look at the average on the long run, in the last 30 years, one can see that Israel is getting less and less natural water that comes to the area, and the demand for water is increasing. Therefore, the gap between the quantity of water that we have and the quantity of water that we need is increasing every year. The average of annual rainfall in Israel is about 5.05 centimeters. That's all, and that's the average. But I want to pinpoint the average annual rainfall in Eilat. That's a southern town that we have, and it's only 0.21 centimeters, only 21 millimeters of rain annually. That's the average. It's completely dry, it's a completely desert area, but this is Eilat. You have hotels, you have swimming pools, you have waterfalls, you have everything. Beautiful town, and that only proves that it is possible to create good living and good supply of water for all users if you use also the technology, the knowledge, and the experience. All over in Israel, if you could look at the natural average rainfall, again, that's the average, it's about 1.2 billion cubic meters annually. But the consumption, the demand for water is about 2.3 billion cubic meters annually. Therefore, we are in a shortage of almost 50% for the average. And if we have a scarcity or a very bad year, then the shortage is much higher. And of course, we must also all the time look at the forecast and the potential of water demand in the next years, because the population is continuing growing and the demand is continuing growing. Therefore, the demand is growing as well. And we must take care and look at that as well. The consumption, if you look at according to the sectors, in Israel, one can see that about 50% of the water is needed for agriculture, about 43% for domestic and industry, and the rest we also have water for neighbors, we have water for nature, and etc. But this chart, you can see also that in agriculture, if you can see that although 50% of the water is going to agriculture, we already transferred many of the water from potable water to recycled or brackish water or flood water. Therefore, it's very efficient. We recycle our sewage. Israel is recycling about 86% of all the sewage that we have, mainly for agriculture, but a bit also for industry or for municipal gardening. That's a whole lecture by itself. But by this doing, we are releasing more potable water for the domestic use, and that's the main problem in Israel and in many other parts of the world as well. And because we do not have, we didn't find Moses' stick, we have to find other ways in order to provide the water. So we prevent the next crisis by managing the water shortage in many ways, and we do everything together. First of all, of course, we must identify the problem. The problem is not that simply we have a droughted year. One must understand that climate change affects the area, and that we might get a series of droughted years. We must start managing the water, trying to make the maximum of every drop of water that we receive, and of course try to, with other methods that I'll speak about them soon, try to create more water than we receive naturally. We are exploiting the potential. First of all, we must collect and catch all the floods, all the water that is coming. Sometimes you receive a lot of rain in a very short time, and most of the water simply is running back to sea or anywhere else, but you must catch it. You must build reservoirs in order to keep them. You get the water in the winter, and you use it, if you have the reservoirs, when it's needed, when it's not rainy. And of course, the two ultimate ways of doing it, reducing the demand on one hand and increasing the supply by creating new water on the second. Now, when I speak to many people, I try to explain them that we must reduce the demand and increase the supply by speaking about my bank account. My bank account, for instance, I spend much more than I earn. Therefore, I'm in a deficit in my bank every day, every month, more and more. Sooner or later, I'll receive a phone from the bank manager that will say, listen, Uri, you're a very nice guy, but you reached a bottom red line. I can't give you more money, simply. And then I can plead, I can say, listen, I just need bread or milk for the kid. I'll say, listen, I simply can't. You cannot receive more. And that's exactly what we have also in our water sources. You cannot withdraw more water than you receive naturally. Because if you take more than you receive, the level of the water in this water source will decrease and continue decreasing until you reach a certain point, a certain red line, that you might ruin the water source, and this water won't be able to provide drinking water anymore. Therefore, if I go back to my bank account, I must do two things. One thing is by reducing the demand. So I collect my family, I explain them the situation. I try to make sure that they understand. We stop courses in the afternoon for the kids. I stopped eating caviar in the morning. Well, we try to cut down the expenses as far as we can. And on the second hand, we must find, I'm not earning enough, I must find a new job in order to earn more. But that takes time. That takes a lot of time. And also in the water, we must reduce the demand as far as we can. We must fix leakages and water losses. You lose a lot of water through water losses and leakages. One must make the maximum effort of conservation, of education, of campaigns in order to raise the awareness and to provide efficiency. We use technologies, and of course in Israel you pay for the money. Pricing is also one element in order to reduce demand, making sure that the people will use what they need and won't waste. And in Israel, we're of course creating a new water by recycling water and by desalination. The solutions are quite vast, of course. Governmental and regulations, integrated water resource management. It's very important in order not to make sure, or in order to make sure that you won't make damage and reduce a certain water source when you have other water sources that they can provide the water. Therefore, if you manage to make integrated water resources management, you provide the maximum without harming any water source. We use flood water. We reuse treated effluents. We use brackish water for agriculture or for industry. Of course, desalination, seawater, brackish water. The development of national and regional infrastructure is very important as well. And of course, conservation, education, and campaigns. And on that, I'll speak the most from now. Well, I always say that the base for a change, and it's not only about water, but the base for a change in a country is the acceptance or the understanding of the public. The public must understand, the public must know. That means rising awareness. But that's not exactly enough. Here is a picture of on one of my tours abroad, doesn't matter what country. Here they're watering the yards there by flooding water. The gardener is holding a huge pipe, and huge amounts of water is running everywhere. And I started to speak with one of the gardeners over there. And I asked him if what's the situation in the country. And he really said that he has big problems, not enough rain. And but it was amazing because he stood in front of me, holding this huge hose, pouring huge amounts of water in the middle of the day when the evaporation is the highest. And he spoke about lack of water. He didn't connect the pouring water that he's using to the solution. Therefore, he was aware of the problem. The awareness, he had the awareness, but it's not enough. We need also to motivate for action. When you do a campaign, let's say I would like to make now a campaign for a certain drink, a new bottle of drink. So I can try to convince you, I make a campaign and I convince you that it's a very tasty drink, healthy drink, refreshing drink, whatever. The moment you go to the store, and if I made the campaign good enough, you'll see the drink, you'll say, I must taste that, and you'll take the bottle and put it in your car. The moment you did that thing, that means I reached you with a campaign, I was successful, I the awareness to this specific drink, and you bought one. But the moment you bought one, my campaign is finished. Now you drink the drink. If you liked it, you'll continue buying it, even if I won't have a campaign. But if you didn't like it, you won't buy it anymore, even if I'll continue with the campaigns or whatever. Therefore, it's not with water and saving water and water efficiency, it's not enough only to raise the awareness. You must also motivate to action, to do something. And usually it's motivate to action that a person doesn't want to do. Therefore, it's even more difficult. And I'll give you an example. If one of us is working a hard day work outside, and the only thing that want to do when you reach home is go in the shower and have a long, good shower. If my campaign is successful, the moment you open the tap in the shower, I must pop up, on your shoulder and whisper in your ear, listen, you must shorten the shower, cut down the waste of water and get out. Therefore, it's not only rising the motivation or rising the awareness, it's also motivating to action. In Israel, we did it with many campaigns. Each campaign was specifically to a certain goals, set onto certain goals. And we all the time checked ourselves in order to make sure that we're on the right line. We used a lot of education that was combined with the campaigns, with the explanation. Everything was combined, different languages, different ages. We did it all combined in order to make sure that we reach everybody and in exactly the manner that we wanted to do that. As I said, we also entered to campaigns targeted to children, different ages, etc. The success and the efficiency must be measured all the time. From day one that you start the campaign, even a bit before that, in order to set your goals, but even when you made the campaign already, one must all the time be with your hand on the pulse and make sure that you're on the right way. In order to measure the success or the efficiency, you must have also some reference points. The best reference point, of course, is water measurements. If the water in a specific country is measured, you can know exactly if different families reduce the consumption or not. If you haven't got it, or if it's not efficient or spread as it needed, one must also find data challenges in order to make sure that you know the direction and to finalize the way that you're going to. We used many research studies, surveys, interviews, different kinds, many kinds, but we used a mixture in order to make sure that we are on the right way. Advertising effectiveness, of course, you must understand that you must know if the campaign is achieving the aims and the targets that we set for in advance. Is it useful? It's not enough that the campaign is beautiful or the campaign is remember, you remember it, etc. The campaign must achieve the targets that you set for. We have two main dilemmas, main problems that we understood that we must target and we must focus in order to make sure that we'll overcome and we will be successful with the campaigns and the education. The first dilemma is, what difference can I make? I'm too small. If I close the shower, for instance, I save a few liters of water. Will that really create the solution? Because the shortage of water is huge. And yes, in our campaigns, we used a lot of psychology. We used a lot of different methods in order to prove and to show every person that every drop counts. That really, if you save a certain amount, it's good, because if everybody saves it, you achieve a certain target. We set targets in advance in order that people will see the goals that we set in order, and then we show them that they achieved it. The other dilemma that we have, and it's a very severe dilemma, is that the government's job to provide water. Water is a right, water is a need. I will use water as much as I want and do with it whatever I want. That dilemma is disturbing many governments in order to start with conservation, because many governments are afraid, rightfully, that the moment they'll say, listen, we haven't got water, start saving, that they will be blamed, that they failed with their job. They are there to provide water because water is a right. Therefore, the campaign must answer those questions as well and make sure that the campaign shows that the problem is climate change or many other things that is also being checked with our surveys in advance. We made a few campaigns, and saving campaigns have shown without no doubt that you can save between 10 to 20% of the amount of water that is consumed in houses and in urban places, in Israel, of course, with emphasize that it's not harming the consumer's welfare. Therefore, you're continuing with your life exactly as you were used to until today. You're simply more efficient. We made a huge research that examined the potential of saving water. And the findings clearly stated, among many others, of course, that water saving is the best available way to reduce the gap between supply and demand of water. Water saving is economical, of course. Water saving is environmental, of course, and can be considered a permanent component in the water sector. And that's very important, because saving water, consuming water rightly, in the right manner, and preventing waste of water should be a way of life, not simply when you have a scarcity year. We set a few goals. The two main goals that we set is, first, we had to cut down 10% of the consumption in households, water. 10%, and it's not something that it's a lot of water. And of course, the second goal was raising the water problem on the national agenda. And it's not easy in Israel, and I presume in many other countries as well. The target audience that we went especially to is, first of all, the public in large, because we really wanted everybody to understand and to motivate to action and to cut down the quantities of water and the loss of water and the waste of water that it is. And of course, children is a special influential target audience. And that is, again, a lot of psychology, a lot of research went in that in order to make sure that it will be efficient. One can reach the grown-ups much more efficiently through the children than you can reach them directly. If I visit one of you, for instance, I come to your house and I see you, let's say, washing dishes, and when you soak the dishes, the water is running. And I say, listen, it's a waste of water. When you soak the plate, you can close the water. And you'll agree, and you'll do that. But the next day, I won't be near you. Therefore, it's more likely that you go back and you continue doing what you're used to. You're not doing it because you're bad or you want to harm something, but you simply go back to your ways that you are used to wash dishes or any other things that you do. But if one of your kids go to you when you wash dishes and pull your pants or your skirt and say, Mommy or Daddy, that's a waste of water, we close the tap. And we close the tap because we want to be an example for the kids. We want to show them that that's the right way, that they're right. Therefore, I reached the father or the mother, I reached the grown-up through the kid much more efficiently. And I win twice. First of all, I reached him much more efficiently. And on the second, the kid, when he'll be our age, he'll save water and not waste water because it's in his blood. He was raised to, he was educated to that. Therefore, it's a very important target audience. And of course, media, design makers, public opinion shapers, these all are very important. We also managed to recruit many of them in order to make sure that we manage to reach our goals in the best way. And the big question is, did it work? Of course, I said everything in a nutshell, but did that work? Did it work? And the bottom line is that the growth of the water consumption has slowed, and we saved over 70% of the consumption in households. As you can remember a few slides ago, the target was 10%. We almost doubled that. And that here you have a chart of consumption. It's about 5 years, until 5 years ago, but I can show you. Until 2008, more or less, the consumption in Israel per capita annually, domestic consumption, was about 102 to 104 cubic meters per capita annually. 102, 104. When we started the campaigns and the education and explanation and other methods, we dropped. We can see a very severe drop, and the consumption went down to about 90 cubic meters annually per capita, and it remained 90 until today. A few years ago, it a bit started to rise, but we, again, with campaigns and education, we cut it down, and we are again standing in 90 cubic meters per year, and that's very good. And we try even to reduce that as well. If you look at the chart of the population versus the water consumption, one can see that in Israel, the population is increasing tremendously, but the water consumption started to cut down very highly, also due to the population. Therefore, it is possible to reduce the amounts of water without harming the welfare of our living and the way of our living, but we must also all the time remain and make sure that you do not waste water, that you not lose water, that you be efficient all the time, and it is possible. As really we always say, once there is the knowledge, there is experience, and the technology can be done. It's done in Israel, and it's not done, and that's it. It's done, and it's continuing being done every year, and it should be done from now and until the end, because the climate change is not in our favor. We get less and less water, and the demand is increasing, and the problem is increasing, and one must understand that you can cope with it, you can win it, but it's a life project. We must start it from today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Uri. Thank you very much. I think that it was very educating in a sense. As we discussed before, what I learned from your activities and from your lectures now is that, in a sense, this is the first step that needs to be taken. And also, this is the one step where you can see immediate results without investing in infrastructure, only by reaching people with the right message transmitted in the right way. So this is also one of the reasons for us to decide that your lecture should be one of the first ones. If you will allow me, before looking for several questions that have accumulated, I would like to let people know about the future lectures. Starting 2 weeks from now, next week we will not have a lecture, but on July 7th we will come back with a lecture, and it will continue until the end of August, every Tuesday, 3 o'clock Israeli time, which is 12 o'clock GMT. The next lecture will be given by Dr. Yanai Amiaz. He's also from the Israel Water Authority, and he will discuss water harvesting and runoff management challenges. And in a sense, it communicates very well with your lecture. If I'm not mistaken, you also reminded the issue of, before producing more water, let's just make sure that we keep the water that we have. So this is the next one. Afterwards, we will have a lecture regarding reducing water depreciation. Afterwards, water purification, quality control, urban water purification and reclamation. Number 10 is water desalination. 11, macro water management. It will begin by Mr. Diego Berger from Mekorot. And in a sense, it will be a kind of a wrap-up of all the separate issues that were discussed, so that people will be able to connect all the dots and to see the whole picture, which is also something that you have mentioned briefly in your discussion. And the last one will be dedicated to water tech innovation. What kind of new developments and new instruments were developed? We will focus, of course, on what we know, which is what we have in Israel, and will be given by Mr. Oded Distel, who's really was and still is the #1 person in Israel when it comes to getting to know the Israeli community of startups and hubs and new tech. Now, give me 1 second and I will look for the question. There were several that I thought that are quite interesting. Let me go up. Oh, that's interesting. How to educate rural and indigenous communities who think water is a gift from nature, then water is free and infinite. This is a challenging question.
Can you can you repeat the question, please?
The question is, I mean, we're talking about the population in Israel, and you can reach the population in Israel via electronic media, for example, and newspapers. And we are a community that is aware of the scarcity of water, etc. The question was about ways to approach communities that not only are not aware of the importance of water like we do, but also think that water is a gift from heaven, and there's a huge amount, an infinite amount of water. How do you convince them that also they have to understand that we are talking about a limited, very important resource, and make them understand that they have to take care also and not just spend water as if, you know. Do you have any experience in dealing with also with that kind of communities?
Yes, of course. I was in a few countries that I received many questions about that. It refers to the water that comes from God, and of course, water is from the nature, and it should be free, not even chargeable. In Israel, you pay for the water. Even you have a law that says that the price of water must reflect the real cost of water. Therefore, the more we invest in the water sector, the prices of water goes up. We have a two-block tariff system in Israel. The first block is a very low price of water in order to make sure that for the basic uses, everybody can afford it. But above that basic uses, you pay much higher price in order to, again, make the consumption the best. But that water really is a natural source, and people in many countries are a bit difficult to make the change that you have to pay for money, or that money has a cost, has a price. And I always say, if you want water freely, no problem. Water really comes from the sky. The moment you have a rain, go out with a bucket and collect as much as you want. But if you want water being supplied to your house 24/7, 367 days a year, and in good quality, that costs money. Someone is doing that, and for this you pay. Well, you pay for the service. You pay in order to make sure that you get best water, best quality, and it's available for you all the time. So it is possible to convince, it is possible to do it. We do that as well, also with explanation and education. It's not easy. It's not something that you can change in one day, but it's something that in our world, in the global change and in the economical and environmental situation that we have, it's a must, it's a simply must.
Okay, another interesting question. Wants you to elaborate, if possible, more on water education for primary and children's education system. How is it incorporated into the system, the education system?
That as well wasn't simple. If you want to make a change, it's always not simple, but you must do it. And you must be sure that you're doing the right thing and prevent mistakes. So also in Israel, we started, and we, at first, we sat with the lectures to the teachers, to the kindergarten teachers, and we tried to make books and material in order to give the teachers the maximum leverage and the maximum management in order to do and to teach the right thing. And we're all the time in connection with them. We are trying, as I said 2 days ago, I was in a kindergarten. I'm trying really to do the maximum. We do it for many years from now until now. and we'll continue doing it. It's something that you mustn't leave, and you mustn't stop from now until infinitum. It's something that one should have a working plan, exactly what you want, what you do, and what you need, the possibilities, and you recruit the right people, and you do what you need to do.
Good, thank you. Another question that I think that we can use in order to give an example for how does the whole system work and what's the role of education in it, is about Eilat. You mentioned Eilat, you showed some photos of it. And the question is, if it only rains 0.21 centimeters a year in Eilat, what system has the Water Commission used in Israel to supply the vital liquid to Eilat? So again, if you can briefly talk about the macro, the whole system in Eilat, but elaborate, of course, on the educational part. Thank you.
Well, as I said, in Eilat, it hardly rains, but the certain amount of water that does rain, you must catch it. You must make sure that you get every drop and you use it when it's needed. One must make sure that you will have the minimum loss of water due to infrastructure. We recycle sewage. You have a lot of water that is being used, you treat it, and we recycle it. And also, we desalinate seawater. Eilat is near the sea, therefore you also desalinate water. But in whole, you do those things, and of course, you make sure that they use water in the most efficient way and lose water the minimum.
Okay, well, I made a mistake. Let's see if there's another question. If not, we'll wrap up. Okay, again, it doesn't relate directly to your subject, but maybe you can say a few words. What are the exact technologies used by Israel for water conservation? Please share your input.
Well, we have many technologies, and what's good also with the Israeli technologies is that we use Israel as one big beta site in order to test those technologies before we recommend them. From the simplest technologies of a dual flush tank in the toilets, through special water heads, shower heads, or tap heads that reduce the amount of water that is running through them, till large scale technologies, starting from the drip irrigation, if it's for agriculture or for even household gardening, but also changing pipelines that are detecting leakages from satellites, being able to change or to fix leakage infrastructure, even if they are under houses or under roads, by putting the new pipeline through the old one. There are many technologies from even almost everything that you can think of, and everything, as I said, is being checked and modified before we sell it onwards.
Good. Okay, we have 2 more minutes, so I have time for a question of my own. If some water authority from another country is interested in learning more, what would you suggest? Where can they find more information? Can they contact Israeli Water Authority? Is it you? Are you the address?
It is possible to reach through you or through me, no problem, and we'll find the right person in order to get the question specifically and get the answers to the right address.
Great. So thank you, Leon. Thank you too. Thank you the other ones that already congratulated you for a wonderful lecture. I would like especially to thank Ora and Alina in Mashav MATC for all the work they are doing. Without them, we were nowhere. Not even one lecture could be done without their amazing help. And thank you, everybody. And again, in 2 weeks from now, the 5th lecture, please be with us. We will send information further on regarding the lecture. Share it with friends if you think that they can be interested in that. And I can also inform you that sharing the lecture on Facebook is working. It worked very well. There's a small delay, but you or others can watch us from now on also on Facebook, and it will remain on Facebook, on the YouTube channel of Mashav MATC. And thank you very, very much, and have a wonderful day or evening wherever you are. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you all.